Halloween is my favorite holiday, and it is also a special occasion that those at the Phantom Hive Manor appreciate and make a note to celebrate. So much so that there is a whole special chapter dedicated to the annual traditions held, or at least what they do on that particular year, and the way they subvert the annual traditions. Allow me to take you back in time to fall of 2016. Black Butler turned 10 years old, and to celebrate the milestone for this long-running manga series, Yana Taboso created this special chapter to essentially thank the fans for their dedication to the series. I also love how the cover for this chapter, the lanterns each represent all of the arcs up until this point. We've got the Jack the Ripper arc, the Curry arc, the Circus arc, the Sherlock Holmes love letter arc, the Zombies on the Titanic arc, the Weston arc, the Green Witch arc, and even a lantern for the, at the time, ongoing Blue Cult arc, showing the star projector from the observatory. This chapter does take place in the middle of the Blue Cult arc, which I just uploaded a video about, but aside from a couple of references to the events that took place prior to chapter 120, this chapter does not have any relevance to the Blue Cult arc. So without further ado, let's don our costumes, prepare our jack-o'-lanterns, and set out on a brave adventure to capture the Halloween spirit. We start off with a pretty simple explanation to some context to what Halloween is as a holiday and what it means for our characters. A festival to exorcise evil spirits, a celebration of the autumn harvest, and a marking of the arrival of winter. It's also believed that the veil between worlds is at its most thin during this time, allowing for ghosts and ghouls to walk among us, or, as stated in this chapter, for the spirits of the departed to return to the world of the living. Sebastian lets Ciel know that it is time to start seeing to preparations for their Halloween celebration. However, Ciel is a little bit too preoccupied with trying to save Lizzie from the Sphere Music Hall and figure out what's going on there and how to shut it down. However, this is annual tradition. Many of those who reside on Phantom Hive-owned land are farmers, and Halloween is also a celebration that is important to them, a thanks for their hard work and harvest. Ciel isn't a big Halloween guy, but he also isn't big on letting himself have fun either, so boo! Womp womp, the little guy doesn't want to enjoy himself. He doesn't see the hype in people just making a racket and playing games with no definitive outcomes. He just does not understand the concept of doing things for the fun of doing it. Sebastian agrees that he also doesn't understand what having fun is, but it is Ciel's duty to take care of his tenants, and in this instance, that means hosting the Halloween celebration that he hosts every year. Sebastian's not gonna let him be a terrible landlord. They will not paint over the wall sockets or the weird gunk stuck to the wall. They are better landlords than that. Ciel has to put on a Halloween celebration, and that's what they're gonna do. So Ciel commands Sebastian to return to the manor without him, since they are still hanging around the townhouse in London, and set up for the Halloween celebration. Sebastian is stressed though, because he also has to prepare for the grand opening of the Phantom Music Hall, but he has demon magic, so Ciel isn't really worried about piling too much onto his plate. I do wonder what it actually takes for Sebastian to pull all of this off though. Like, what are the laws and limitations of his demon powers? And is it really that big of a strain to do all of this, or is he just complaining because he wants to and Yana Taboso thinks it makes a silly contrast? Demon Butler being exploited and held to a higher standard than his human co-workers. I wonder if Yana has like an idea about how magic works in this universe. Like, does Sebastian have like a set of laws that his powers can operate within? I know it's not really important to Black Butler for that to be fleshed out, but I am very curious. Back at the manor, Sebastian and the other servants get to work getting the place into the Halloween spirit. Bard is to handle gathering apples and raisins, I think for games and eating. Finny is to gather turnips for the jack-o'-lanterns, because if you were like me and forgot upon reading this chapter the first time, jack-o'-lanterns were initially made out of turnips at first, or at least in some places. Mayrin and Snake are here to work together, getting the metal basins and enameled platters ready, and Tanaka is just here to vibe, have a great time. Bard wonders why they do the same thing every year though, like don't they get bored? He thinks English Halloween is kind of lame. He explains how American Halloween is more of a scary event. Scare off the witches and evil spirits by dressing up as monsters, and using pumpkins for jack-o'-lanterns because they're just a brighter color and they pop more. Kids go trick-or-treating and get candy and all that fun stuff. This is the version of Halloween, or something pretty similar to it, that I think most of us are familiar with, and is somewhat practiced around the world as far as I know. With America spearheading the film industry after the World Wars decimated Europe, it does make sense that a lot of American cultural norms get spread around via the media that was exported across the world, especially things that tie nicely into capitalism, like modern Halloween. But if you do Halloween differently than this, or like the mainstream modern American Halloween, please tell me. I love hearing about how people celebrate holidays, and I would love to hear about how you celebrate Halloween if you do anything like particular. I know there are like different cultures and different spiritual and religious practices that do Halloween slightly differently, so I would love to hear about it if you don't mind sharing. Sebastian explains how in England, the main event for this time of year is actually Guy Fawkes Night, which is the day after Halloween. Guy Fawkes Night being the anniversary of the arrest of Guy Fawkes, a member of the plot to blow up the House of Lords and assassinate King James I, according to the author's note in the manga. But it's still about people getting rowdy and parading around and burning statues of the guy, and setting off fireworks. Bard thinks this sounds boring though. Well, he specifically says Sebastian makes it sound boring. I'd like to think it's Sebastian reciting this information in a bored tone or some sort of monotone voice, just info dumping everything he knows here. Mayrin takes this as an invitation to share how in China, they also believe that the dead return to the world during this time. In English, it would be called the Hungry Ghost Festival. They burn paper offerings at graves for the spirits, and it's said that the Lord of Hells opens the gates to the land of the dead, and both the deceased and demons are able to visit the land of the living. Tanaka pipes in, sharing the Japanese traditions as well. He explains the Halloween equivalent would be Oban, where people make horses and cows with cucumbers and eggplants to greet the souls of their ancestors. So if you've ever been playing Animal Crossing and you're wondering what these things are, that's what it is. The lid of Hell's pot is opened, enabling the spoils of ancestors to return to their families. It is important to note, though, that these holidays don't all take place in October. Ghost Festival and Oban actually take place during the summer. It's just that these holidays are equivalent to the original meanings of Halloween. For further context, it's all similar to Mexico's Day of the Dead. Vinny is pretty excited to hear about all these celebrations, though, and so is Snake, and his snakes. I think these two grew up in an environment where they wouldn't be able to really learn about other cultures and other holidays that are not celebrated within their immediate environment, with Snake having somewhat of a less than privileged background, probably didn't get to indulge in holidays too often, and we know Finny was basically a lab rat until he got adopted by Ciel and Sebastian, so his experience is extremely limited to just what has gone on at the Phantom Hive household. And for Snake, he did spend a lot of time in the circus. He had a life outside of the Phantom Hive era of his life, but we are led to believe that it wasn't really much of a life, and I could see how he would either be left out of holiday celebrations or just not have the opportunity to learn about or experience anything outside of like a very specific version of holidays. Halloween rolls around, and Ciel returns home for the holiday. Sebastian takes him to the garden where a combination of all the things the servants talked about are on display. Pumpkins carved into jack-o'-lanterns, gravestones as a reference to the dead spirits often associated with the holiday, and the servants are dressed up and ready for trick-or-treating. Ciel doesn't really know what to make of all of this. It's not at all what he's expected. Sebastian has prepared a Halloween costume for him as well, explaining that it's an American way of celebrating the holiday. Sebastian also explains that he decided to change things up because Ciel was not enjoying Halloween anymore, combining the traditions of various holidays with similar intents and meanings to create what is essentially an interpretation of modern Halloween, all to show the Phantom Hive tenants the time of their lives. Sebastian is definitely showing off here just for the sake of showing off and knowing that he has done something that the humans think is praiseworthy. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Sebastian is an incredibly pathetic demon compared to other demons, and that's why he craves human validation so much when it comes to his power and his good ideas and everything, or he's just an attention whore, basically. That's what I think about the man, but that's not like necessarily canon. The tenants all arrive and they celebrate with Ciel and the servants. It looks like everyone has a great time eating, playing games, and celebrating the season. Tenants come up and thank Ciel for what he's done for them and their community. He honestly seems to do a really good job at being a lord. He has a very kind heart, and I don't think Ciel would intentionally exploit people if he did not have to. And okay, maybe I don't really know what being a lord was like in this time. Like, obviously a landlord in 1889 England is very different functionally than a landlord in 2024. Functionally, they're a bit different. I am aware of that. But I think Ciel does a good job. Like, the people seem to like him, and he seems to actually be seeing to their needs where it's applicable or his responsibility. So, like, good for him. They also share fresh baked goods with Ciel, and the children even come up to him for trick-or-treating. And Ciel does not mind humoring them. This is something that we don't really see in him very often, but he is very willing to indulge and hand out candy to the kids and make sure they have a great time and have a great time along with them. This Halloween has been the best one ever. As Ciel watches the children run off, he flashes back to when he was younger, watching Lizzie and assumedly his brother run off ahead with Rachel and Vincent. I like to think this is probably a flashback to a year during his childhood at this same Halloween celebration. Ciel reaches out, indulging in the memory, yearning for the past, until Sebastian calls him back to reality. The party is still going on, but before Ciel addresses everyone with his final words, Sebastian has one last thing prepared. The group head off to a river, lanterns in hand. This is the Japanese Lantern Festival, in which the souls of the deceased are sent back to the land of the dead. Tanaka explains how they pray that these lights will lead those souls back to the other side, and prevent them from going astray, and how this sentiment is shared by all despite culture and background. We all just want our loved ones to thrive even in the afterlife or whatever you believe happens after death. Nobody wants the souls of their loved ones to suffer or be stuck where they shouldn't be. So Ciel lights everyone's lantern and they set them off. We get this beautiful spread of the lanterns on the water and Ciel looking down, feeling big emotions. His reflection in the water showing a version of him that has long died. His child self before all of the trauma. You could also interpret this reflection as being a reflection of his twin, representing a person who is just legitimately dead, but I do think that the mirroring of the bang swoop here is due to the fact that this is Ciel's reflection, and not a deliberate portrayal of the twin. It's symbolic of the past, a version of Ciel that no longer exists, having come back for tonight with the rest of the spirits that came back for the holiday. For tonight, Ciel let himself revel in childlike wonder, celebrate Halloween, and feel joy in a way that he does not typically do. Something that would have been so normal for him before, but so absent in his day-to-day life at the current. Flames dance in Ciel's eyes as we spiral through his memories, connecting more with the past and the things that killed the child we saw in Ciel's reflection. The day the contract was made, Aunt Angelina's death and funeral, the curry competition and Soma's hardships, the circus and the atrocities Ciel saw and committed at Baron Kelvin's, Sebastian's fake death and Arthur Conan Doyle, Lizzie's fight on the Campania, Undertaker's reveal, the cricket tournament at Weston, Sullivan's gas experiments, and Wolfram's almost death. We go through the big moments of the story thus far, and these are all moments which were very upsetting, traumatic, life-threatening in some cases. But this is also Ciel's past, albeit more current past than the past we were thinking about before, but these are things that are in the past, things Ciel needs to let go and move on from. The candle burns away to keep its flame alive, just how human beings continue to burn, continue to fight for survival against all odds, just like Ciel. An inconstant flame that flickers dangerously in a gust of wind and is extinguished all too soon. We flash to the servants, Lizzie in the music hall, Undertaker by the twins' side. Humanity is fleeting. Lives are so easily lost, but they press on, burning as brightly as they can for as long as they can. But that is what makes them all the more beautiful. Despite its flaws, humanity is a vastly interesting and beautiful thing for Sebastian. Despite how Black Butler tends to paint and wallow in the worst humanity has to offer. But any flame, however small, can become a raging blaze when fanned by the wind. There's power here despite how Sebastian may initially see it, danger looming on the horizon. Sebastian should handle them, the servants, Lizzie, potentially Undertaker, and or the twin, with utmost caution. Don't let them burn out, and don't get burnt by their flames. Sebastian agrees. It's his duty, after all, to light Ciel's way as they walk into the darkness. He shall strive to keep Ciel's tiny flame alive and continue to light the way with the flames of those Ciel loves and cares about, for the time being. After all, Sebastian is a devil of a butler. I've always loved this chapter. It covers all my favorite things about Halloween, and I get to see my favorite little guys in cute costumes. However, I do think this chapter serves as a send-off to the lives of those that were lost throughout the story thus far. The fictional lives, I should clarify. Everything Ciel has been through, all the trauma he has experienced. His flame burns on, though. But we know Sebastian is ultimately guiding him to his end. Ciel may still be alive, but he's being taken to his death. There is pretty much no other way for this series to end, at least in a satisfying way. Ciel is being guided to the other side, just like all of the souls in the Lantern Festival. However, for Ciel, the other side is resting in Sebastian's demon digestive tract. I do want to say that this chapter also feels like a testament to what Ciel has gone through. It's also symbolic of him letting go of the past, guiding the spirits that haunt him to the other side, letting his past self finally rest. It's him overcoming himself, overcoming the demons that have been haunting him, letting go of the spirits of those who have passed on throughout the series and before the series even started. It's growth. Kind of. Like, yes, processing these things, letting things go is growth, but I also know that as much growing as Ciel does, he does not always grow in a way that is productive to actual, like, happiness and healing. But then he is also being raised by a demon that needs him to wallow in these more negative and painful aspects of existing because it flavors his soul or whatever. So, yeah. I just have to add here at the end, this chapter also feels to me like Yana Toboso is priming us for everyone to die by the end of the series. Like, what do you mean their flames are at risk of being extinguished soon? Why do you say that while showing us the servants and Lizzie? Why does this feel like a warning? I'm not going to spoil anything or discuss anything that we have not already covered in the deep dives, and things that haven't happened yet at the time of this chapter 120 being published, because that just does not feel fair. I am able to say for certain, though, that I think we can all agree Black Butler is not going to have a happy ending. There's no way for this story to wrap up without somebody getting screwed over, disappointed, dead. And as to what that looks like, though, only time will tell. It's just pretty clear to me that Ciel is probably going to die. I mean, that was kind of set up from the beginning. If he doesn't die, something wild is happening, and the stakes are getting higher and higher every day in the manga as we speak. Well, okay, maybe not literally every day as we speak, because it's on hiatus, but, the stakes are gradually getting higher with each arc, I feel like. So I'm not just, like, saying things to say things when I say that I think we're, like, gearing up for a very tragic ending. But that's just my thoughts. The chapter got me thinking about that a lot more than I usually do. But that's been the Halloween chapter. There's been a lot of discussion about this chapter when it first dropped. A lot of people wondering what it meant for Ciel's childhood, maybe even the twin. Because at the time when this chapter came out, the twin was not fully revealed yet. Just to put that in context. So it was really cool going back and seeing this chapter, not looking for twin crumbs. While there are some in here, there are like some things that I'm pretty sure are not twin crumbs that used to be read as twin crumbs, if that makes sense to anybody. Anyway, that's basically all of my thoughts on this chapter. It's a fun, silly little thing, but it also kind of shows like some overarching themes of Black Butler in a fun way that I think is really nice, and also divorced enough from the rest of the story that it feels a lot more lighthearted than it probably is, especially towards the end. The end gets a little grim, a little things are not gonna end well for us, but it's okay because it's Halloween, so we're just gonna ignore it. Anyway, I don't really have too much else to say. I would love to hear your thoughts about this chapter. I love this chapter. I think it's great. I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween. I am uploading this on Halloween, so happy Halloween. Hopefully this will be up before people like go trick-or-treating and all that. Do people still go trick-or-treating? I don't know. I'm aiming to have this uploaded earlier in the day, so I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday if you celebrate it. I know not everybody celebrates Halloween. But yeah, have a great Halloween. I don't know what my next video is gonna be, but I'll be uploading sometime relatively soon. And thank you all for basically celebrating Halloween with me and going on this little recap of the Halloween chapter and yapping about our thoughts. I'll see you next time. Goodbye!